वेलकम टू SOMP। आज के बिग पिक्चर डिबेट का टॉपिक है रिफॉर्म्स इन यूएन एंड अदर इम्पेयर्ड ब्लॉक्स। दीज वर द पैनलिस्ट ऑफ आवर डिस्कशन। सो आइए देखते हैं कि कंटेक्स्ट क्या है। Recently, India's permanent representative to UN, who is Ambassador T.S. Tirumurti, he spoke in the United Nations General Assembly on question of equitable representation and increase in the membership of the United Nations Security Council. साथ ही साथ he also said that nothing has moved for more than a decade in the international governmental negotiation except सिर्फ passionate statements ही दिखने को मिल रहे हैं on the need for reform. साथ ही साथ, while addressing the virtual summit of BRICS grouping, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he also reiterated India's long-standing demand for the reformed multilateralism. उन्होंने emphasize किया कि reforms होने चाहिए certain institutions में जैसे कि UN, IMF, WTO and WHO to gain credibility. So now let us see what is UN. It is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace and security. साथ ही साथ friendly relations develop करने की बात करता है among nations. Also achieve international cooperation and be a center for the harmonizing the actions of nations. This UN was established in 1945 after World War II and इनका aim था to prevent future wars. इसी का एक organ है that is United Nations Security Council जिसकी reforms की बात कर रहे हैं. So UNSC is one of the organ of United Nations and is charged with the maintenance of international peace and security. इसके powers includes establishment of peacekeeping operation, establishment of international sanctions, and authorizations of military actions through the Security Council resolution. ये एक लौता body है UN का which have an authority to issue binding resolutions to the member states. The United Nations Security Council इसकी 15 members हैं जिसमें 5 permanent members हैं. Those five countries are Russia, United Kingdom, France, China and United States. So ये जो five permanent members हैं, they can veto on any substantive Security Council resolutions, including those of the admission of new member states or candidates for the Security General. So ये जो सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल में बाकी 10 जो मेंबर्स हैं दे आर नॉन परमानेंट मेंबर्स एंड दे आर इलेक्टेड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ ऑन रीजनल बेसिस टू सर्व 2 years term. The body's presidency rotates monthly among its members. So the next year, 2001 to 2021 to 23, India will be one of the non-permanent member of United Nations Security Council. So ये जो रिफॉर्म्स की बात कर रहे हैं सो लेट अस सी कि वेयर वी नीड रिफॉर्म्स दैट इज द एरियाज ऑफ रिफॉर्म्स. फर्स्ट इज defunct United Nations Security Council. जो veto powers हैं, which has been possessed by UNSC's 5 permanent members, they are used as an instrument to shore up their geopolitical interest. So ये reflect नहीं करता आज के distribution of military and economic power को, ना ही geographical balance को. Thus, the structure of the 15-member Security Council इसको more democratic and representative बनाना चाहिए. So, this has been a long overdue demand from many countries, especially from a group called G4 countries, which consists of Brazil, Germany, as well as India and Japan. ये advocate करते हैं कि permanent seat मिलना चाहिए इन चारों countries को. Next body in which they are talking about the reforms is WHO, that is World Health Organization. WHO did not cover itself in the glory during COVID-19 pandemic, and that is why the questions has raised on an institute from all across the world, and the reforms is required in this body as well. Next body is WTO, that is World Trade Organization. WTO is in limping and it needs change. जो dispute settlement mechanism है WTO का, it is on the verge of dissolution. So it इसलिए there is need to be looked upon because this dispute settlement mechanism जो है, it is vital for developing countries. Next body जिसमें reforms की बात हो रही है, that is IMF, that is International Monetary Fund. It needs technical change as it has different methods of handling developing and developed nations. So these are the few blocks, impaired blocks, जिसकी बात हो रही है. Now let us see why do we need reforms. UN has been successful in decolonization process and preventing another world war. जो इनका मेन मोटिव था when it was established in 1945 कि ये फ्यूचर में कोई wars नहीं होने देंगे. So they were quite successful in preventing another world war. However, जो भी 21st century का world order है, it is very different from the 20th century, and they may pose new problems, and there are many new problems and the realities as well. So reforms in UN are necessary in order to strengthen the UN's effectiveness as a multilateral organism, bring more transparency to the institution, and it can enhance its credibility also. जो सिर्फ 5 permanent members हैं, it it is not representing the larger world. It does not represent the current balance of power. ऑल्सो देखा जाए तो साउथ अमेरिका, द एंटायर साउथ अमेरिका एंड अफ्रीका की कोई रिप्रेजेंटेटिव भी नहीं है इस बॉडी में, मतलब इन द इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ दीज 5 permanent members. Also, there has been no, the experts have said that there has been no progress for for a decade. The intergovernmental negotiations, as quoted by our ambassador, Mr. Tirumurthy, he said that the intergovernmental negotiations has not only been informal but has no rules of procedures and records, forcing nations to keep their own notes and placing a tremendous burden on all small and medium states. United Nations also system has stopped working, and this was quite visible during this pandemic time. इनने कुछ ज़्यादा major role नहीं किया to tackle this COVID-19 pandemic issue. Today's major threats are globalization, terrorism, pandemic, and climate change. So here the United Nations system is not resilient and responsive. They are trying to give solution, but the solution है they are giving through an old structure which has lost its elasticity now. So therefore, there is a need to hammer them in a new position. That is, there is a need to have reforms in these institutions. So now let us see कि इंडिया का क्या व्यू है इस रिफॉर्म्स के लिए. India has always been at the forefront of the for year-long efforts to reform the United Nations Security Council. India rightly says that India says that they rightly deserve to be a part of a permanent member of the UNSC, which is a current form does UNSC, because India says that the current form जो UNSC का है, it does not represent the present geopolitical realities of the 21st century. The reasons India has given to be a part of permanent member of the United Nations Security Councils are India was among the founding members of the United Nations. It has also been a member of UNSC for 7 terms and a member of G77 and G4 as well. So permanent membership for India is a logical extension. India is the second largest and one of the largest constant contributor है troops का to the United Nations peacekeeping mission के लिए. अभी के टाइम में India has over 8,500 peacekeepers in the field, जो कि almost more than twice हैं as many as the UN five big powers combined together. Also, while talking about the reforms, India is looking at a kind of restructuring of international order which must be equitable. India has always stood for this since the World War II and allowed Africa and other newly emerging countries to be the participant of this council. So, as per India's permanent representative to the UN, the area which needs reforms are General Assembly, जहाँ पे rules and procedures need to be altered, methods of working in the United Nations General Assembly, and the membership of the UNSC, including the other permanent members. So these are the areas जहाँ पे इंडिया ने कहा है कि reforms की जरूरत है in UN. So these are the reasons why India says that should be they should be a part of a permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. So now let us see what are the major challenges for these reforms to come. First challenge is laborious process. That is reform जो है UN में, they are not reforms जो भी लाने हैं UN में, they are not as easy as it sounds so. It has a very laborious process for adopting even a document in United Nations. Problems with the President of General Assembly. India has always friendly president at the General Assembly, normally which is known as PGA. सो पहली बार हुआ है कि टर्किश डिप्लोमेट अभी वहां का पीजीए है इज अ पीजीए एंड विच इज नॉट फ्रेंडली टू इंडिया एंड actually have a close associate with the Pakistan and this and also been a part of a coffee club. ये जो कॉफी क्लब है इट इज एक्चुअली a nickname of uniting for consensus, which was actually a movement which was developed in 1990s in opposition to the possible expansion of permanent seats in UNSC. इनका मेन एम था कि काउंटर करना है कि to counter the bids for permanent seats which was proposed by G4 nations where India is a part of it. Next major challenge is China. Chinese persons are they are heading almost all the five different UN agencies, which are actually pushing agenda in the UN to promote their agenda in the UN to promote Chinese interest. So China is one of the biggest opponent of India and G4 as far as UNSC reforms are concerned. यूएसए एंड रशिया भी कुछ ज्यादा इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है इन एक्सपैंडिंग द यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल सीट्स ऑल्सो कोई कंसेंसस नहीं दिख रही है अमंग द अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज एज वेल. At the UNSC, China has blocked a serious discussion on origin and the sources of crisis, while the US has also walked out of the WHO on allegations of supporting China. So, this is also one of the major challenges. Many countries, as I've said it, are not in favor of the changes and reforms and blocking India's effort to be as a part of a permanent membership. So these are few challenges. Now let us see what can be the way forward. UNSC reforms are important for India, which is one of the leading economies in the world. So India को work करना पड़ेगा to break out this procedural jam, so that at least एक draft तो text हो, draft तो बनाया जाए that can begin to move forward in the UNGA, that is General Assembly. UNSC reforms will take time and will definitely take time, as it is not that so easy task to be taken upon. And knowing this, India should look for other small agencies and try to put its candidates there. Being one of the major economies and a major power in the world, India should think wisely that about the soft loans it usually takes from the World Bank and other institutes. इंडिया को बात करनी चाहिए to the with the five permanent members as to what their positions are and persuade them to reconsider their foot dragging on this issue. So at the short term, India need to look upon the growing influence of China in the UN and start putting forward either our own candidate or working out strategies to ensure that candidates जो friendlier nature के हैं to India has to work with countries like US and others to reform specific UN agencies which are continuing to have difficulties. साथ ही साथ India can leverage multilateralism to serve India's interest, like aligning with the Quad countries or working with the mechanism like FATF to mount pressure on Pakistan to stop supporting cross-border terrorism जो वो create कर रहा है इंडिया पर. Further, while reclaiming its role in the non-alignment movement, that is NAM, India को engage करना चाहिए with other multilateral institutions as a new rule making, as India is not at disadvantage if rule making takes place outside the UN. So these are certain measures जो India कर सकता है to get the to have such some reforms in United Nations Security Council and other impaired blocs. So now let us see the conclusion. This is for sure that we need to see a restructuring of the world order to allow the developing countries and the middle powers to sit at the high table so that वो भी ensure कर सके कि their voices are heard. So multilateral blocs such as UN and others are finding it difficult to address the issues like terrorism, climate change हो गया, globalization and pandemic because they are having an old age approach to deal with these problems. So these blocks and agencies need to change and be abreast with the time. Reforms across the world are necessary, and we have to continue to push for the reforms at all the levels. And also, we need to watch out for China's ambition as far as UN and other UN bodies and agencies are concerned. So that's all for today. If you found this video helpful, like the video, comment on it, also subscribe to the channel. आप हमारा टेलीग्राम चैनल भी ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं, which is @SOMP Guidance for further updates. Thank you.